draft week. Tyler, you are our draft guru. What are you expecting to see Thursday night with the number one pick?
I'm starting to see more consensus. Wade is right. It's looking like it's going to be Bryce Young, the quarterback out of Alabama. It's looking like, Carolina. I've heard some rumors, like Vegas is trying to tempt me of Will Levis. His odds are plus
Yep, I sent
400,
that
but
to y'all.
I'm not
His
buying that.
odds
But
jumped up.
a quarterback that's really starting to get some hype of being a first round draft pick, that's Hendon Hooker. Like, I feel like none of these scouts are really concerned about the injury, his age. He's a 25-year-old quarterback. He's older than some of these rookie quarterbacks and some of these quarterbacks that are
He's
already
not
in the
older
league
than Stetson Bennett.
as well. So I could see a team like Minnesota taking a leap on Hendon Hooker as early as, pick number 23. Maybe Detroit snags him at 18, depending on if Will Levis is already taken there. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks taken. There's probably going to be 2 or 3 tight ends, and there's going to be 2 running backs taken with Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs.
Okay, I like it. Yeah, I sent y'all the thing on Twitter about Will Levis's odds to be the number one pick jumped up to plus 400 all of a sudden. And somebody said he knew somebody from the Panthers who said we're definitely taking him. I mean, that guy probably just works for one of the sports book and they're trying to get a ton of
They're
money.
just trying to create something new. It's going to be Bryce Young.
Well,
I
it's
think
it's
it's
brilliant for Vegas because they can sucker
oh
people
yeah.
in and
Oh,
put
yeah.
Nobody's
$5
betting
on
on
it.
him minus 100. I think he's like minus 16,000 to be pick number one, Bryce Young. Like it's literally like if you bet $100, I think you win like a cent. Like you don't get anything. So I understand why they're putting this out into the media, but someone I could see, he goes number one to the Panthers. I have been sold these past couple days. I've been doing my research. Dan Orlovsky is, if that's how you say his name, Danny O has been just hyping up this dude, and for rightful reasons. Is Anthony Richardson going to the Texans? Some people think they're going to probably, if Bryce Young's not there, they're going to go grab Will Anderson. But I don't think you. And if I'm the Texans, I'm not passing on Richardson or C.J. Stroud at this point because you got long neck David Mills or Davis Mills back there playing quarterback. But I think they got to take Richardson. He's too athletic. And him and Will Levis are both compared to Josh Allen, which take that as you will. It doesn't matter until you actually get in the league and do what you do. But I don't know. I'm feeling good about Richardson going too. Wade, what do you think?
I think that's a risky move, but might be one worth taking because, it was all doom and gloom when they thought of the number one spot, and Carolina presumably gets their first take at the quarterbacks. And when they made that move, people thought it was for Anthony Richardson. So for him to potentially still be there at number 2, there's a good chance he is the best quarterback out of this class long term. Certainly brings the rushing upside. But I don't know. I have the gut feeling that with a defensive-minded head coach that they just brought in, I think he wants to kind of build this team from the trenches. They brought in some offensive linemen. They could go get their choice defender, probably Will Anderson instead of Jalen Carter. And, if a guy like Hendon Hooker or Anthony Richardson is sitting there at number 10 when they pick for the second time in the first round, absolutely you got to jump on him. But if he's not, there's a good chance this team's going to be picking in the top 5 again next year, and we'll have a chance at Caleb Williams or Drake May.
That's true. Do you take the risk not taking a quarterback with your first pick, and like you said, they have the 10th pick? There's a very good chance Will Levis is sitting there, or possibly Hendon Hooker. Or do you pass on that and then really tank again and go after Caleb Williams?
Just really depends on who's there. I mean, if Bryce Young is truly number 1 on your big board as a Texans GM, I think that the gap between the next best quarterback and the top defensive prospect is pretty large. So I think you go defense, and then you just kind of keep working down your draft board. If your second favorite defensive guy's there at 10, then I think you take him. But it might be one of those situations where they really value one of the other quarterbacks, and they're not just making noise about it because they don't want to stir up any trade chatter.
Tyler, do you think the Texans possibly trade to the first pick? I know nobody's really talked
Um,
about it, but could it happen?
it definitely could happen. I just think that Carolina's already set on their guy, and they're not going to move. I think that it's going to be Bryce Young one. If we want to go ahead and go into our top five, like we're already talking about the Houston Texans, I think that they're just trying to create a smoke screen is all that they're trying to do. And all of a sudden, like, oh, we wanted to take defense, and it's either going to be Will Anderson or I could see a guy like Tyree Wilson, edge rusher out of Texas Tech. He's been flying up draft boards, but I think at number two, I think they go with, the best quarterback in the draft, in some drafts aspects. I know that Bryce Young, he's a proven winner, but I feel like CJ Stroud is going to give you the higher ceiling in the end. I mean, Bryce Young is going to be consistent, but I think that Houston's going to want a high ceiling in this one. I think that pick number 12, they get real spicy. They pair him up with JSN. Why not go get Jackson Smith and Jigba? It's his college teammate. We saw JSN whenever he was healthy, he was getting all these catches. 300 yards of the Rose Bowl game is the game that we always go to. So I think that's how the top two is going to shake out. You're going to see two of the top quarterbacks go back to back.
Double offense there for Houston.
Yeah.
That would be one way to do it
Be
for sure. I
interesting.
mean, you saw it work with Joe Burrow and Jamar, and then Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith as well, and Waddle and Tua. So it's becoming a trend.
So I'll give you my top five here. Number one, I think Bryce Young goes to the Panthers. Number two, I'm going Anthony Richardson to the Texans. Three, I think the Cardinals go after Will Anderson. I feel like after that point, they obviously don't need a quarterback. They have Kyler. And I think they just, especially if they're losing Buda Baker, I think they go defense and might as well go with the best defensive player, in my opinion, in the draft. This is where it gets a little dicey with the Colts. I can't decide if they're going after someone like Will Levis because you look at the past couple quarterbacks they have, and it's kind of Will Levis. Like Will Levis runs a little bit, but he's more of a pocket guy. CJ Stroud, yeah, he can throw, but I feel like he's a little more mobile. And I don't know. I mean, the Colts, they have a new coach. I don't know. I'm going to toss it up. I'm going to go CJ Stroud to the Colts at 4. And then Seahawks at 5. Ooh, I don't think they go after Will Levis. I think they're happy with Geno, and then maybe take somebody later in the draft. We'll go Jalen Carter at 5 to the Seahawks. So, Wade, what's your top 5?
All right, so I'll keep it pretty vanilla at number 1. I think Bryce Young is the pick. You don't trade all that draft capital and as a first-year GM to strike out. So you go get the guy who's won a Heisman, the most proven candidate. We've seen Alabama quarterbacks be pretty decent in the NFL, should be ready to go. So I think he's a day one starter for Carolina. At number 2, I'm going to have the Texans go defense. I don't think it's just a smokescreen at this point. I think they're going to be a little heartbroken that their guy, Bryce Young, ultimately did get picked. So they're going to go with Will Anderson, his teammate. Very good pick there for Houston. And then at the 3rd pick, I actually think there'll be a trade here if y'all allow me to make a trade.
Okay.
I think that Las Vegas is going to jump into the top 3 to snag Anthony Richardson away from potential suitors such as the Colts.
Okay. I like that. Yeah.
But I think the Colts will be happy. I think they're going to go with Will Levis. I just think CJ Stroud, because of that cognitive test, is going to be the guy who falls in the draft boards here. He won't fall too long, but I do think he is the 4th quarterback taken.
I saw something about that cognitive test that said the results that were released were not accurate. I don't know how true that is. I don't know how true the actual results were.
They're just trying to knock down these prospects. It's like, just leave the man alone. Like, who cares about that? Like, the tape is there for him.
Yeah, the dude can play football. Maybe he doesn't have the best social skills and thinking skills. Whatever. If he can chuck the pigskin down the field and hit his wide receivers,
but wins you games.
Yeah, as long as he's just not an idiot off the field, that's what you should be worried about. But I mean, I'm pretty sure that's like a HIPAA violation. Like that's like a medical exam, and they're just like releasing the scores. I don't know, but I feel like something that should be released to the public.
But we see it happen every year. Somebody slips, and then a guy that has no business jumps into the top 5. So I'm going to make it interesting and give you 2 guys surging into the top 5 that probably will be worse quarterbacks than Mr. Stroud. But I think that's how it will shake out with Levis at 4. And then at number 5, I think the Seahawks will go back to defense with Tyrese Wilson at the edge. And Seattle and Houston, are 2 teams that could look to take CJ Stroud with their next pick or trade back up to try to get him later in the first.
Okay. Ty, what's your top 5?
Yeah, I mean, my top 5 has already changed. I mean, I put out a mock draft a couple of days ago. Even my top 10 has changed as well. But the consistency has been, like Wade mentioned, it's a first-year GM. You got to go with the safe pick. I think the safe pick is Bryce Young out of those top 2 quarterbacks, even though I think that CJ Stroud is going to have a successful career in the NFL. But number 2, the Houston Texans, so ultimately, it's probably not going to be the quarterback they want, but it's going to be the quarterback that they get. It's going to be CJ Stroud. Number 3, I also have a trade happening, but I have the Colts just bumping up from number 4 to number 3. They're going to get Anthony Richardson, get their quarterback of the future. Gardner Minshew could go for a year, and then after that, just hand the ball off to Anthony Richardson. He's going to be your guy. Then we have number 4, the Cardinals. They're going to go with the best defensive player in the draft, go with Will Anderson, the edge out of Alabama. And then Seahawks, I agree with you, Chad. I think that Jalen Carter, I'm just so tired. Like, who cares about all the off-field stuff? The on-field Jalen Carter is the best defensive player in this draft. So you just got to go with the player on the field.
Yeah. I agree with you. Now, if he's like getting in fights and shooting people, okay,
that's
maybe that's what you temper your expectations a little bit.
That's true.